Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Congressman Pat Fallon joins us. We talk Alejandro Mayorkas' impeachment. That's ongoing today. And Julie Kelly joins us at 5 o'clock to react to a D.C. court ruling today saying that Donald Trump, the former president, is not entitled to presidential immunity for the acts he took while he was president. What is happening in that case? We'll explore it with Julie Kelly. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Boy, just so many hilarious, unfortunate, tear-inducing statements from Joe Biden and all the people around him in the last 24 hours. Here's Karinge talking to Peter Doocy today.
So, you guys talk a lot, including today, about how the border wouldn't be such a big deal if Congress would have just passed your immigration bill on day one. Who was in charge of Congress on day one?
Oh, let's see. This is an IQ test for Karinge.
So it's been 3 years. It's been three whole years.
Uh-huh.
More than 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
More than 1,000 days.
Wow. Did you hear her do the math there? So quickly. More than 3 years, more than 1,000 days.
And look, this is a difficult issue, obviously. This is a difficult issue. And
do you hear? She's circling the drain right now. She's looking for her talking points. What do I say? What do I say? I'll just say it's difficult over and over until I come up with something.
We have said is that Congress has to act, right? Congress, Democrats, Republicans have to act.
Uh-oh.
But in those 3 years, it is true that Republicans have gotten in the way. They just have, Peter. They have consistently used the immigration system, the broken system, as a...
Are you hearing this, lady? Now, if this is the first time you've ever listened to this program, I just want to point out this is the White House press secretary. Her job is to communicate in English with some clarity the policies of the current administration. And here's what it sounds like.
Years, it is true that Republicans have gotten in the way. They just have, Peter. They have consistently used immigration, the immigration system, the broken system, as a political stunt. That's what they've done. They've gotten in the way in trying to get more Border Patrol agents. They've gotten in the way in actually trying to fix what's happening, the challenges at the border.
Fix what's happening, the challenges at the border. Obviously, that perfectly so.
So
I mean, they voted. They've actually voted.
The first 2 years, no responsibility.
It has. I'm not saying that Democrats have not been in control the first 2 years. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying House Republicans.
I'm saying that the clock starts on my talking points after they left power.
Have gotten in the way. They have. They have purposefully gotten in the way in trying to fix what's happening at the border.
And now what she means by fix, to the extent that she even understands it, is amnesty. So Republicans have stopped amnesty packages, thank the good Lord, and they've actually passed border security requirements, including nationwide E-Verify, in the form of H.R. 2, which is a great piece of legislation. Let's advance it in the Senate. But that's not what's happening. Why? Because Democrats have gotten in the way. What's the word she used? Consistently? Democrats have consistently gotten in the way. That's what's happening of actual border security. They've consistently, every opportunity, cut through the border wall being erected by states who would like not to be invaded. So, great question from Peter. Hey, wait a second. You keep saying it's Congress's fault. Who was in charge in Congress on day one? Can you remind me? And she just spins out of control because it's a perfect question. It's just a perfect question. Let's see. Was this Doocy today? Karine Jean-Pierre was asked if Biden takes any responsibility for this deal falling through. Here's her response today.
At the feet of Donald Trump, the former president, he's the current occupant of the Oval Office. Doesn't he bear some responsibility? He didn't engage with House Republicans. He negotiated with the Senate, but not the House, the other branch of the legislative branch. Where is he taking responsibility here?
The president has taken this issue incredibly seriously.
He has taken this issue incredibly seriously. How could you has missed this? It's unbelievable that the media has missed this.
Where is he taking responsibility here?
The president has taken this issue incredibly seriously from day one. You heard us say this over and over again. You heard this from the president. On the first day of his administration, he said He said, I'm going to put forward a comprehensive immigration legislation.
He said, I'm going to put forward a legislation. Could it be any clearer than that? He put forward a legislation, and it was clear.
He said, I'm going to put forward a comprehensive immigration legislation that was introduced more than 3 years ago. More than 3 years ago, and they have failed to act.
That's 1,000 days, in case you were trying to do the math at home. She can do it. She's like a human calculator. 3 years ago. That's like 1,000 days. Holy crap. We have, let me see. I've got more, just because this is too fun. It's like ridiculous. Unbelievable that she's doing this. Oh, Biden. Okay, this is good. This is a different issue. Biden this week cited, he made reference to a French president who died decades ago and acting like he just spoke to him the other day. Biden on Sunday appeared to mix up French President Emmanuel Macron with the former leader of France, who's been dead for nearly 3 decades. During a campaign speech in Vegas, the New York Post reports the 81-year-old president inaccurately recalled speaking to former French President François Mitterand, who died in 1996. He said he talked to him during a 2021 meeting with world leaders. Maybe he did. Maybe they all got the Ouija board out or something, and they were talking to Mitterrand. They wanted to see what he was thinking about everything that was happening. Here's Biden this week. Take a listen.
You know, right after I was elected, I went to what they call a G7 meeting, all the NATO leaders. Mm-hmm. It was in the south of England, and I sat down and I said, "America's back." And Mitterrand from France looked at me and said, "You know, why? How long are you back for?"
That's how he said it? Maybe English was a rough go for him. What? How long you back for? Said Mitterrand, who's been dead for decades.
Why? How long are you back for? And I looked at him.
And what did you say?
And the Chancellor of Germany said,
I like picturing that he's talking to a coat rack during this sequence. He's not actually talking to anybody. I was talking to Mitterrand, and I said to him, "Yeah, America's back. Nice jacket."
Chancellor of Germany said, "What would you say, Mr. President, if you picked up the paper tomorrow in the London Times, and the London Times said, 1,000 people break through the House of Commons, break down the doors, 2 bobbies are killed in order to stop the election of the Prime Minister." Mm-hmm. What would you say? Mm-hmm. I never thought about it from that perspective.
I'd say, what's a bobby?
We say if that happened in another democracy around the world.
Uh-huh.
Well, the whole world watched. The whole world watched.
Yep.
And what's going on?
It's like when Voldemort attacked the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It was crazy. That's the president. So here is Peter Doocy, going back to Doocy's great questions, today asking Karinge Jean-Pierre how the White House is going to convince the American people that he's not senile.
Is President Biden ever going to convince the 3/4 of voters who are worried about his physical and mental health that he is okay, even though in Las Vegas he told a story about recently talking to a French president who died in 1996?
I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with you, sir.
What is
We're
the
going to
rabbit hole?
go ahead.
He said
go
he
ahead.
talked to Mitterrand.
Go ahead. You saw the president in Vegas, in California. You've seen the president in South Carolina. You saw him in Michigan.
What is she doing? What is this? She's spinning out of control. She's like, quick, name every state you know. You saw him in... No, he asked you a specific question about why did the current president of the United States cite a fictional meeting with a guy who died decades ago? And she's, I'm not even going down the rabbit hole with you on a question that's a perfectly decent one. How come Peter Doocy is the only one who's asking it? How come the rest of the briefing room is averting their gaze? You can't see this. I can. I'm watching the video. They're averting their gaze from Peter Doocy as he asks, "Oh, no, don't ask about how senile the president is." This is like, you know, this is the press used to do this with FDR. They didn't show his legs. They didn't want people to see it. But FDR still had a brain. So that was at least defensible. This president, not so much.
Go with you, sir. We're going to go. Go ahead.
He said
go ahead.
he talked to Mitterrand.
Go ahead. You saw the president in Vegas, in California. You've seen the president in South Carolina. You saw him in Michigan. I'll just leave it there. Go ahead.
What? What is that answer? It's complete nonsense. Did she not prepare? That's the other thing. Does it ever drive you crazy? You think, if you were White House press secretary, let's say for a day you were Joe Biden's press secretary, and I know it's not a job you wanted, but let's say they were paying you an unbelievable amount of money and your family was simultaneously being held hostage, and your obligation was to spin for him for a single day, and you get the money and you get your family back or something like that. Whatever it takes. Wouldn't you prepare? Wouldn't you sit down and be like, what could I possibly be asked? Well, let's see. The leader of the free world suggested he had a conversation with a dead guy, and somebody in the press is probably going to ask about this. It's probably going to be that Peter Doocy character. What's my answer going to be? You saw him in South Carolina. That's it. That's all. Next question. It's embarrassing. Totally embarrassing. All right, let me shift over to another embarrassment. Alejandro Mayorkas, today you've got Congress, the House Oversight Committee. They're in the midst of an impeachment hearing for Alejandro Mayorkas today, a man who so badly deserves it. And over on CNN, they are convinced that this is racism to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. Now, on first blush, I didn't do the math. I was like, how does the left arrive at impeaching this random white dude? Why would that be harassment or racism in their eyes? What is the point that they're trying to make? And it turns out Alejandro Mayorkas, if you didn't know, because I haven't been following this closely, I care less about his origin story than I do his actual time as DHS Secretary. He is an immigrant. He was born in Cuba. He immigrated to the United States. Okay. So he deserves to be impeached. Listen to the way Phil Mattingly at CNN describes the effort right now to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas.
When you talk about impeachment,
he's talking to, by the way, Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat.
When you talk about impeachment, a White House official pointed out that in the impeachment report, it says, quote, the committee, through these articles of impeachment, begins the process of deporting Secretary Mayorkas from his position. I think it's not subtle, the fact that Secretary Mayorkas is the first immigrant from his family to serve as a DHS secretary. When you hear that, what do you think?
What is that? Okay, so let me just... This is crazy. So, okay, did he say a White House statement said this? On screen, it says it's a House impeachment report on DHS Secretary Mayorkas. This committee, through these articles of impeachment, begins the process of deporting Secretary Mayorkas from his position on account of his failure to comply with his official duties. Okay. So it's a House impeachment report. And of course, they would use the word deporting because Mayorkas is refusing to do that to all of the people who are breaking our laws. So removing Mayorkas from his position, they declare in a cheeky way, is to deport him from that role. Here's how Phil Mattingly describes it.
When you talk about impeachment, a White House official pointed out that in the impeachment report, it says, quote, the committee.
Oh, okay. So a White House official pointed out that in the impeachment report, this would be the perspective of the House Republicans.
It says, quote, the committee, through these articles of impeachment, begins the process of deporting Secretary Mayorkas from his position. I think it's not subtle, the fact that Secretary Mayorkas is the first immigrant from his family to serve as a DHS secretary.
What?
When you hear that, what do you think?
This is like, this is the old playbook. It's like when you have no other weapons, reach for race card. Is that it? There's like nothing. There's no other response. So Secretary Mayorkas, in other words, like his tenure is so indefensible. There is not a single way you could possibly defend him on the merits. So you're left with only saying, well, they're attacking him because of his race, because he's an immigrant. I mean, is this the funniest thing you've heard all day? Other than Karinge Jean-Pierre? I mean, it's like crazy over at CNN. And of course, Hakeem Jeffries legitimizes the entire, it's totally bad. It's very racist. Because Mayorkas is trying to do a great job with the border. He's totally securing the border. A+. Oh, man. Republicans today, the Congress, vote debating on the House floor the impeachment vote for Alejandro Mayorkas. Here's Congressman Pat Fallon a short while ago.
Alejandro Mayorkas fostered this mayhem, and he facilitated a cataclysmic chaos. He's inept, he's weak, he's impotent. He's violated federal law, He's purged himself in front of Congress. He's lied to the American people, and he's undermined his own Border Patrol agents. Mayorkas has shown the world who he is. He is a sheep in sheep's clothing. And the cartel wolves and our enemies across the world are circling. This impeachment is richly deserved, and we must fire this bum, this second coming of Benedict Arnold, forthwith. Madam Speaker, I yield back.
Yeah, selling us out to an invasion. Benedict Arnold, famous for that. And Alejandro Mayorkas now as well. So same with Joe Biden. Benedict Biden selling us out to the foreign invasion pouring across our border. Pat Fallon will join us here coming up just minutes from now. We'll ask him about the debate that is going on in the House, what we should expect in the hours ahead, and what it means for a possible Senate trial for the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas. A lot of questions on what comes next. So we'll talk to Pat Fallon. He's just around the corner here on the Vince Coglianese Show. Stay with us. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be joined by the great Julie Kelly. Talk to her about the latest court ruling against Donald Trump, the Biden administration desperately trying to convict him before the election. You know, they're meddling. Julie Kelly will react. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. An impeachment hearing underway today, floor debate on whether or not to impeach the DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. My next guest made a forceful case for that very thing today. Congressman Pat Fallon represents Texas's 4th Congressional District. He's a member of the House Oversight Committee, and he joins us now. Congressman, great to have you back. Thank you, sir.
Vance, how are you doing? Great to see you.
I'm doing great. Give us a sense of what the floor debate is about today specifically.
Honestly, again, I'll be very candid with you. The Democrats seem to be saying, and I heard about 11 of them speak while I was on the floor waiting to have my turn. It was about these extremist MAGA Republicans. They're so racist and awful people. Oh, and oh my God, it's horrible. I mean, come on, it's a broken record, Vince. We're talking about the most unsecure border in our history. We simply want to secure it. We're rooting for the 3.8 million people that are waiting in their home countries, waiting to come to the country legally, waiting in line, respecting the laws and the rules of the countries that they want to become a part of. And these Democrats forget those folks and say, no, if you just want to come. It doesn't matter if we know who you are. Just come in. I'm sure you'll be a good little boy or girl. And by the way, it's going to cost us $155 billion a year. Never mind the added dangers that some of these folks present. And it doesn't even need to be a high percentage. It could be 1%. And it would still be something devastating in the country, et cetera, et al.
Mm-hmm. So will there be a vote, an actual vote today on impeaching Alejandro Mayorkas?
Yes. Yeah, we will be voting in about, I would say, somewhere, maybe as soon as an hour from now.
Okay.
This debate wraps. And I'll tell you something else, Vince. Your listeners and you are going to hear this first. It's going to be an airtight vote. And I'm always hopefully optimistic, but I don't know if it's going to make it or not. It's going to be that tight. It's going to literally be within single digit 1 or 2, 3 votes.
Because you're losing a couple of Republicans who are, for some reason, supporting Alejandro Mayorkas staying in the position. That includes Congressman Ken Buck. Why is that? I'm flabbergasted, and as I said yesterday, befuddled at someone that, like a Ken Buck or Tom McClintock. I'm sorry, Congressman. I missed some of what you said. Tell me about these Republicans again who are supporting Alejandro Mayorkas staying in the job. Sure.
No, I'm befuddled by some. I mean, I think it's. I heard Ken Buck, and I think also maybe I've heard Tom McClintock, both of who I would describe as pretty strong conservative voices. On this, they're just dead wrong. And I had a little mini debate with Tom McClintock, who I respect greatly. I just see him as misguided on this particular vote. And obviously disagree with them. I just wish they wouldn't vote at all. I would either vote present or just miss the vote. Say, I don't want to be a part of this process. I think it's, well, for whatever reason. So just don't be a part of the process. Don't vote with the Democrats. It's sad.
So from where you're sitting.
Yeah, Vince, sorry. We can afford to lose 2. But the problem is, like, Steve Scalise is battling cancer. He's not here. And there's another fellow, Nick Langworthy, great guy. His father literally just had a stroke. 4 hours ago when he's, hustling home to be with his dad. So those kinds of things come up. But the Democrats are missing a person or two here. So it's really going to be a question of who gets there to vote in the next hour, and what do some of these Republicans do? Do you vote no, or do you just not vote, or does somebody have a change of heart? It's literally going to be down to one or two people.
Right. And so let's talk about, first of all, if you were successful today in voting to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, this would force a trial in the United States Senate, wouldn't it?
It goes to the Senate, and, unless there's some new evidence to convert these open border folks that are, in the Democratic Party, that most likely won't happen. But it still doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And let me explain why. We need to get as much attention on this, not even crisis anymore, cataclysm. So continue to have people talking about it. And it's working because now over 70% of the American people do think the border isn't secure, and they feel it's dangerous. And it's a very precarious cocktail when you allow hundreds of thousands and now millions of people into your country and you don't know who they are. I know you get that. I know your listeners get that. Unfortunately, the Democratic Party, at least the vast majority of them, don't understand that.
Right. And as far as Mayorkas is concerned, this is the primary purpose of his entire job. He's supposed to maintain the sovereignty of the United States as the head of Homeland Security. He has betrayed us. You compared him earlier to Benedict Arnold, and that comparison is appropriate because he's allowing a foreign invasion to break through into our country, in fact, aiding and abetting it with our money.
Well, I do think he's a bum, and that's why I said I actually called him a bum on the House floor, because you testify under oath in front of Congress, and you say that the border is no less secure than it has been in past administrations. That is a bold-faced lie. And in my remarks, I showed that with just a few 4 or 5 quick examples that it's not, when we're talking about 1.5 million was kind of the baseline for a 3-year period to encounter illegally, and you had 8.3 million, that's not the same, my friend. I don't know, maybe he's extraordinarily bad at math, but it's not. And Chinese nationals have exploded, opioid deaths, the cartels are making record profits. Another thing is migrant deaths are at historic highs. Funny how the Democrats never talk about that either, because when the drug cartels are running this kind of operation, life has a price and life is expendable.
Lately, Joe Biden has been referring to the situation on the border as a crisis. The White House has changed positions on this because they believe they can pin blame for it on Donald Trump now and Republicans broadly. I want to play for you a question that was asked of Karinge Jean-Pierre involving Alejandro Mayorkas' testimony before Congress today. Take a listen.
President Biden said today that the immigration system has been broken and that he intends to drive home the message that, quote, the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends. Secretary Mayorkas repeatedly said that the border is secure, and that's one of the reasons House Republicans are trying to impeach him. Did President Biden just confirm that Mayorkas gave Congress false information when he said that the border was secure?
I actually want to go back to your question. It's a ridiculous premise and a ridiculous statement that was made about this administration. So I just want to be very yes, I just want to be very, very clear. It's just ridiculous.
A bitter answer from a woman who is obviously caught here, a congressman, but this goes right to the center of your impeachment effort today.
When you go to the border, I would encourage anybody to go to the border and you talk to Border Patrol agents, the chiefs of the sectors and all of the brass and the Customs and Border Protection, and they will tell you if the president did one thing, just one thing, which was the Wait in Mexico policy, if he reinstituted that, he has the authority to do that. He doesn't need Congress to do it. Then the border numbers we're seeing will collapse by 70% within a week. And he refuses to do that. He can't blame us. He can't blame Republicans. He can only blame himself.
Yeah.
Now, he'll use an excuse because he's done this privately. I just talked to one of my colleagues who talked to Biden in the White House, and he said, I can't reinstitute Wait in Mexico. Mexico won't go for it. Well, shucks. And I'm thinking of another word to say there, Vince. Shucks. You can, because President Trump did it. So was it because he was projecting strength and the fact that we have more leverage over Mexico than they could ever dream to have over us? They can't survive. Their economy will collapse if we shut the border down for any amount of time.
Well, wait a second. But even that explanation falls apart because, like, the idea that this current legislation would allow Biden to, quote unquote, close the border down, that would impose the burden of the humanity that's trying to cross it on Mexico anyway. So is he saying that Mexico is agreeing to help us in the event that we pass this new legislation?
No, he's just talking out both sides of his mouth, and I don't think the right side knows what the left side's saying. I don't think his brain cells are connecting anymore. The neurons aren't firing because it makes no utter sense. How in the world do you blame? They blame MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump for everything. They blame him for this. Then how is it? Riddle me this. Look at the numbers when he was president for 4 years. Why did he have these issues? Why did it suddenly happen after January 20th of 2021? They blame everything on Donald Trump. They blame the Ukrainian war on Donald Trump. Guess what? Putin didn't do anything for the 4 years that President Trump was in office. President Trump kept them in check.
Yes.
Joe Biden didn't.
Now,
it's really, they're rewriting history. And by the way, just to your point, that is the theme of the Democrats all day today was extremist MAGA Republicans, this is their fault. Because that's what they have to message because they've seen the polling that they're losing 70-30 on the border.
Yes.
And everybody that has a brain cell knows that it is a crisis and a cataclysm. So who's to blame? So now they're trying to point the fingers.
Yeah, they want to transfer liability to the opposing party,
Exactly.
which is just crazy. But they're aided and abetted by a corporate news media that willingly carries their water with joy, or whatever you call the animating emotion that goes into their efforts. But they're definitely doing that. We're seeing it all across the press. Oh, why wouldn't Republicans go for this? It's bipartisan. It's common sense. And so this is, for some reason, a number of Republicans in the Senate went along with this scheme to allow Biden to try and establish this talking point that it's actually Trump's fault that the border's open.
So, yeah, because it doesn't it's not logical to assume that a president and a Homeland Security secretary who are already ignoring existing laws, the way to fix this is to pass another law that they can ignore because it says in the law that they can ignore it. Here's one. Let me just read this one sentence. If the president finds that this is in the national interest to temporarily suspend the Border Emergency Authority, the president may direct the secretary to suspend use of the Border Emergency Authority on an emergency basis. So for any reason, if he just says, oh, this is an emergency, I can just suspend the entire bill that you just passed into law. I don't trust you already.
And we know what that looks like. He's already suspended border enforcement, so we know exactly what that looks like.
Precisely. That's why, yes, I get the fact that we're in divided government, Vince, and we're not going to get everything we want, and that does take compromise. But when you have compromise, that means you get some benefit, not no benefit. You would get some. Some benefit would be reinstitute Wait in Mexico. Put it into law. The president must do this, and the president signs the bill. The Senate passes it, the House passes, then it's law. Then he must do it. But they won't do that because they want to have this wiggle room, and it's full of Swiss cheese loopholes.
So, okay, so project forward. You were telling me that it's going to be a very close vote within an hour from now or so on whether or not the House does actually impeach Mayorkas, the product of a very small margin for Republicans. A couple of Republicans, at least two, have indicated opposition to impeaching Mayorkas, and, of course, others who are absent for, in one case, an emergency in the family. So do you actually have a sense right now what the whip count is? Like, or is it really that live of a situation that we don't know how it's going to end up an hour from now?
Yeah, no, it's that tight. Yeah, it's one or I wouldn't be surprised if we win by 1 or lose by 3, something like that. It's that tight.
It's that tight. Okay.
Yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
All right, so we'll look forward to it. Also, the politics of all this. Don't you think it's a little weird that they haven't ushered Mayorkas off to retirement by now? Like, this is obviously a huge political liability for them. They could have done this months ago. But it's almost like they just keep him in place as a giant middle finger to the country and certainly to the Republicans in Congress who are trying to hold him accountable.
Yeah, you're right. And like Obama's own Homeland Security Director or Homeland Security Secretary, Jay Johnson, was saying like 1,000 a day illegal crossers was busting us at the seams. And that was putting us at really maximum density. And now they want to normalize 5,000 in this quote unquote bipartisan bill. I don't know what happens to those senators when they get over there. I think it might be the powder in their wigs, when they go over there and they speak with their British accents and such, then they're in the upper chamber. It might seep in and make their brain foggy.
Yeah, I think it also depends a lot on which lobbyists are powdering their wigs. I think that's part of it too. Hey, Congressman Pat Fallon, thank you again for the breaking news update here. We'll keep our eyes tuned and ears tuned to what's going on today in Congress. But a very close vote ahead on whether or not Alejandro Mayorkas gets impeached. It should be overwhelming, but unfortunately it's close. Congressman, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Vince. God bless. Take care.
Always good to talk to you. God bless. Yeah, that's annoying, to say the least, isn't it? That's where we're at. And of course, you had like Republicans. They kicked out. Can you imagine if it just comes down to one vote and they fail by one vote? They would have had George Santos, but they booted him because it's suicidal. It's a suicidal Republican Party. They ejected George Santos. Yes, he's a liar, but he's a vote. He's a vote. You could have used it when you desperately need it. But he's missing. So we'll see if George Santos ends up being the deciding factor today on whether or not Alejandro Mayorkas gets impeached.